What's up, everybody? It's me, Retrovin, and we're at another review. This time, we're going to be reviewing Daxter for the PSP and PlayStation Vita. So, without further ado, let's get on with the review. Now, probably my biggest complaint about the game, and it's not really that big of one because the gameplay is really where it counts, but the story of Daxter really isn't all that great, to be honest with you. So basically, it starts off pretty good. You know, it starts off like with Daxter and Jack falling down to Haven City, just like the beginning of the second one. And Daxter's like running off. Pretty accurate. Good stuff, right? There's this old guy that like sees a big giant thing fall down, which is what, you know, Jack and Daxter were on. And he's going to investigate. Daxter basically hits the Crimson Guard, and the guy's like, oh, who's that guy? And for some stupid ass reason, they make it to where it's almost 2 years after that event, rather than it being within that 2 year time frame, which I feel like would have been more interesting. They could have really utilized that, but they made it to where it was like, I don't know, maybe like a week or two before Jack actually got released from prison. Not the biggest issue, but it just feels like there's a lot of potential that was lost with that, sadly. Throughout the game, you'll meet some pretty interesting characters. You got Osmo. I'd say he's the most interesting one. I think he's a pretty good character. He kind of reminds me of Samos, but if he was like more of a tinkerer kind of guy. There's also his son, who, you know, he's got a cool surfer dude attitude. A character I would compare him to is probably like Skid McMarks or something. Pretty cool dude. He's funny. There's also the crazy, totally not evil bug store owner that basically goes after Osmo's ass constantly and, you know, eventually turns out to be pretty evil. And then there's also the one character who is basically Ashlyn, part two. Like, she's got like a little bit of a different personality, but she's basically just Ashlyn. She even looks a lot like Ashlyn, which, you know, no big deal. It's a spin-off, so you wouldn't expect crazy characters, but it does feel like they reused a bit of them, sadly. And I mean, Tick basically has little to no personality. He's the last new character that is actually relevant, because he has like his own little mini mission that, you know, it's kind of annoying sometimes, but it's fairly fun. I had never had any major issues with them. Now, to give credit where credit is due, the characters that do come back from the Jack games are pretty cool. Samos is there at the intro. He gives a nice little speech. Jack appears a few times, but he doesn't talk. He's basically back to his Jack 1 form. You got Errol and Viger that appear. Bruder also finally makes an appearance again, and as always, he's the best boy. But yeah, no, basically, it's all about Daxter trying to get Jack back. He's doing stuff for Osmo. Funny thing is, he, like, eventually forgets that, oh, wait, I forgot, I have to save Jack. You know, I've been too busy with my bug exterminating, I guess. Now, there's a few twists and turns. Like, Daxter has, like, a little, bug friend that he meets. The guy that basically hired the bug exterminator was a bug himself. I know, funny irony, right? And he actually kills Daxter's little bug friend by squishing him. Pretty brutal. But yeah, no, by the point it gets to like the near end point, Daxter goes to the palace, and then he goes to the prison to end off the game. And, you know, that's where he saves Jack and everything, and you know, it was a pretty good level. I liked being able to explore the prisons and just seeing how more treacherous it was as Daxter rather than, you know, just getting through it with Jack. Pretty nice level, I'd say. And with that, I'd say that caps off the story pretty much. Like, you know, he defeats the metal bug leader and all that, and then he gets back up to Jack, and basically that's where Jack 2 begins. So gameplay-wise for Daxter, you basically have your regular moves. You have your little electric thing you can basically slice forward. You can only do one slice unless you're doing a combo on metal bugs. Later on in the game, you'll also get different sprays that very much help with getting the bugs. There'll be the green one, which will kind of be toxic to the bugs. There'll be the flame ones, which, as you can imagine, will burn the bugs. And then there's just straight up the bomb. It's very powerful, but you run out of shots pretty easily. A cool thing about the sprays, you can also use them to hover. So if you want to, like, get up to, like, a higher distance, you can use that to do so. And the thing about the fire spray as well is that also gives you better distance as well. So overall, I would say the fire spray is probably the most useful one because it has the best ammo and the best power ups. The precursor orbs were just as plentiful as the ones in Jack 1, unlike Jack 2, where you actually really had to look for them. In Daxter, you just find them everywhere. It's basically like Jack 1. Some would even say, maybe Daxter took them all. The level variety is decent, but there are a lot of repeats. Luckily, though, the repeats of most levels are different levels. Like, there'll be Strip Mine 1, for example, and then there'll be Strip Mine 2. Luckily, Strip Mine 2 is a very different, it's a different, layout, but the environment's the same, so I'd say there's a give and choose. So, while it may look the same and they probably ran out of, environments, it's a different, area. You're still doing different things, which I like. That's a good thing, at least. You also have different vehicles throughout the game. One vehicle, which is your main one, is the scooter. Fun fact about the scooter, if you have a JackX save file for your PSP, you can get a better scooter for Daxter, which I thought was pretty cool. Also, there are weird mini games that you can do when you go to sleep, and they're all parodies of different movies and stuff. They're pretty cool. They're nothing to write home about. They're mostly rhythm, button mashing kind of mini games, but they get the job done for what they are. Another vehicle you use is also the vehicle they use to go to the forest and various different other locations. It's kind of like a Crimson Guard vehicle, and you basically, well, one's a Crimson Guard vehicle, and the other is Osmo's vehicle, Betsy. And they're pretty good. I've never really had an issue with those levels. Sometimes they could feel awkward, but for the most part, they work out pretty good for what they are. They kind of remind me. A lot of it feels very Jack 1-y, and I feel like that was the intention. With those levels kind of reminded me of, Precursor Basin, for example. Good levels. I like the vehicle missions in this. The only one I don't like too much is when you're riding the Zoomer and you're, getting chased by Crimson Guards or you're getting chased by the train in one level. I didn't really like that one too much. It kind of felt eh. But aside from that, for the most part, I think it was good. As you're going through the game, you'll find weird-looking cages. Now, the thing about the cages is those are basically Pokemon bugs. And I say that because that's literally what it is. You unlock different bugs for, a multiplayer thing you can do. It's pretty much useless now because there's no online anymore. But if you or a friend have another PSP, and you could connect the two, you can have a nice little match with them. But aside from that, there's not really any use to it, and I couldn't play it because I don't have anybody else with a PSP that I know. The bosses in this game are actually pretty decent. A lot of them are basically metal bug kind of things, but some are a little different. For the most part, you're fighting either big mama metal bugs or just different kinds like that. They all have a nice little strategy to them, and I never really had any problem with any of the bosses. My favorite one is obviously the final boss. I feel like they utilized that pretty well. That one full-on had 3 phases, and for a PSP final boss, it did really good. And I'd arguably say for a regular final boss, it was even quite good. In the same vein as Jack 2 and Jack 3, the more precursor orbs you get, the more extras you get. So basically, once you get a certain amount required to get an extra, you can unlock different things like concept art, developer interviews, crazy stuff like that. And I think that's cool. I'm happy they had that for the game. The one thing I will say is skull gems don't have the same kind of use as precursor orbs. They're not as useful as they were in Jack 2 and Jack 3. You're mainly just getting the skull gems so the game can say, oh, you got enough for this level, now you can get out. That's basically the only use for it, sadly. Not a big deal, but it would have been nice if they utilized it for something else rather than just that. The music for this game is a very mixed bag. There are some really nice sounding ones, like the Strip Mine, for example, but I'll be honest, there's some of them that are so forgettable. They sound like stock music to me. And I like some of it. It's good, and I got 3 good ones to show off, but I have to say it's kind of a mixed bag. I'm not too sure about it. But here are 3 good ones that I enjoyed, so why don't you give some a listen? Well, everybody, that was basically it for my review of Daxter. I think overall it's a pretty good game. It's definitely better than Jack X and the Lost Frontier, and oh boy, we're gonna get to the Lost Frontier eventually. Don't worry. But I don't think it's as good as the original trilogy. For obvious reasons, there's a lot of things that are missing. That's the point, because it's mainly about Daxter, it's on a handheld, so it's expected. Looking at it through the lens of a handheld game, I'd say it's one of my favorite handheld games because it just has so much going for it. It's a very nice recreation, like the city environment is really good. They did really good with recreating it. Like a lot of those city sections in Jack 2, they mirror it in Daxter, but with like slightly less good graphics. It's really good. So yeah, overall, I'd say Daxter's a pretty solid spin-off. If you got a PSP or a PS Vita, or if you got an emulator, yeah, no, go do that too. That'd be pretty epic. But yeah, without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed my video, and I'm out. Peace.